Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. You're watching Game Brigade, and I am your host, Brian. And today on the show, we're going to be taking a look at the top 8 games that I'm playing right now with my playgroup. Let's take a look. If you're new to the show, we do previews, reviews, and playthroughs of our favorite games. So if you're new here and you enjoy the content, please consider subscribing. So what I wanted to do today was compile a list of games that I found was really enjoyable for our player group at a 4-player count. So we're going to be talking about games that I felt played very well at 4-player. And I kind of went through the list and picked out some games that might not be as known or recognizable. Some of these obviously are going to be recognizable. They're probably going to be games you know about. But if you're a person who's looking at picking up some games for your player group and you might have a player group of 4, I think this list might be fairly valuable to you. So let's go ahead and take a look at the first game. So the first game that I want to feature is Root. Root is an asymmetrical war game that has many different factions, and I've got several different expansions for this. And so the newest expansions, there's 2 expansions now that have added 2 new races to the game. What I like about this game, and the reason I think it plays really well at 4 players, is the fact that every race does something completely different. It changes the way the games are played when you add in new races, and people start taking, really learning what their specific race does, and really has a very dynamic experience. I do think that Root is better when each player knows how to play their specific race. Generally, when I'm playing a war game that has many different races or factions, I like to be variable and pick different races each time, switch it up, let's try it out. But because these races play so differently, it's very much helpful for each person to know specifically how to play their race, and that makes the game more enjoyable for everyone. If there's no questions in terms of rules or anything like that, and everyone kind of has a very solid understanding of what to do, I think that's where Root really shines. So I put this down at number 8 because I felt like, because of the aspect that everyone has to kind of be really centered on their specific race, it might reduce the amount of variable games you can play. Because if you're going to play, I really do recommend learning a specific race until you have it, and then that's where the game truly starts to shine. That's number 8, Root. For number 7, I have Imperial Assault. Now we have 2, I believe, RPGs on our list right now, and I think RPGs are very easy to have for a player group. If you're a player group of 4, they're just so easy to pick up, and there's so many different roles that you can play. I generally think RPGs are fairly solid, really any RPG. I wanted to showcase Imperial Assault. This is a little older title, not a lot of people talk about it anymore, and I really like the way the campaign is played in this game. Now, this is a game where you're going to have one player playing the Imperials, the rest of the players are going to be playing the Rebellion, so there is going to be a versus component of this. But the way the campaign is made, where the Imperial player is going to influence the paths, the decision paths made by the Rebel players, is really cool. I also like the fact that when you have both missions revealed, it can kind of influence how the game is going to play as you go through your, say, 10 mission campaign. I really think Imperial Assault is not given enough credit for the good mechanics it has. It basically took the Descent model and improved on it, and it's a pretty solid game. If you're a Star Wars fan or not, I think it's a one that's worth trying out. Okay, here we have Tapesty. Now, Tapestry's been on a few of my lists already, so if you've been watching them, you probably have already seen this game. But what I want to talk about Tapestry and why I like it at 4 players versus 2 or 3 is any game that has components of a Euro-style game where you're taking actions or modes, I think increases the interaction between players. Now, Tapestry I like because there's a subset with the technology tracks along the board. There's specific buildings that are given for free if you're the first person to reach. So I like that little bit of competition as each player's doing their own thing, yet you're influenced by what your opponents are doing because, oh, you know what, I need to make sure that I'm going to get to that track before they do to get that free building. Or there are tapestries that you'll play that are directly influenced on what your opponents are doing to get you more points. I enjoy games that really taking advantage of what my opponent's doing in terms of like referencing what they're doing, not necessarily hurting them or doing anything negatively to them, but basically influencing what they're doing, maybe changing their decision-making paths to increase my gameplay. I think it's a fun game. And I think Tapesty is also a fun casual game, really easy for 4 players to pick up and play. Takes about an hour and a half. I'd always recommend this game, Tapestry. Coming in at number 5, I have Caverna. Now this is another follow-up basically into the Euro style gameplay of taking actions and having the actions of the other players influencing your decisions. I always think, to me, the interaction of what my opponents are doing and playing and the decisions that they make in terms of the action board or their worker placement is really fun, and it creates a fun dynamic of, oh shoot, well, I want to make sure I get this before they get there, or how many turns can I go before there's a risk that someone might take the action I want to take. I think Caverna plays that really well, and I do like that there are multiple ways that you can win this game or take different strategy positions. Like, do I want to focus on farming outside? Do I want to focus on farming in the cave? Do I want to be kind of diverse? Do I want to focus on getting donkeys or gems? There's a lot of different ways that you can win in Caverna. I think it's a fun game, and it has a really nice element of interaction between the 4 players. Now, for the next game, Scythe, this would also count towards the big main game, but I wanted to focus this one on the campaign version, the Rise of Fenris. I think not a lot of people talk about the legacy game of Scythe. A lot of people refer to Scythe as just the base game, which is great. I love the base game of Scythe. I love the placement and the duel, the top action, the bottom action, and maximizing your efforts, and how everyone will be missing a specific resource, so it causes some having to move forward. I think the Rise of Fenris, though, has enough story elements and additional changes to the way the game is played, as well as unlocking some unique new things, makes it a really fun expansion. I think this is definitely one to pick up, and if you're a Scythe fan, this will increase your gameplay immensely. We're only about halfway through it right now, but I can't wait to finish the rest of the campaign. Okay, for the next one, we're in the top 3 now. On Mars. Now this is a great game, and this is a worker placement game by Vito Lacera, where basically the players are going to be making decisions on how best to colonize Mars in their view. Now, what I like about this game is that while it's a worker placement game, there are 2 different sides of the board that you're going to be on. You're either going to be on the space station or you're going to be on the colony. And so the decisions that you make can only be used on the side of the map that you're on. And what was great about this is that there's a shuttle that moves back and forth between the 2, and the decision-making process of, well, am I going to go on the shuttle? Am I going to get out of here? And then once you do go on that shuttle, your placement in terms of your player order is then decided. So there's a really interesting sub-game played with the 4 players of, where am I going to start in the game? What actions am I going to take? Because you can also, it's a worker placement, you're filling the action. So if you take an action, it might not be available for someone else to take that same action. But then when you decide to go somewhere else, you can lose your seat in terms of where you're going to be in the player order, which is always interesting in a worker placement game, because you really want to be as early as you can for the start of each round so you can pick the best action. But it might not mean that you're in a good spot for the game in terms of what's currently happening. So I think On Mars really showcases this. It's a really well designed game, and I love how everything is kind of interconnected with it and makes everything play on itself. The next game, and this one probably would be number 1 for a lot of people, and it is probably number 1 for me at times. But for right now, I'm going to put it at number 2, just why not? Because it's my list and I want to do that. So Gloomhaven, this is probably the daddy of all RPGs right now, but I wouldn't even call it an RPG. What I like about this game is the interaction of a puzzle game. That's really what I'm going to call it, a puzzle game, as you're completing each scenario. What I think is great about being at 4 players is it increases the difficulty level of the puzzle, of the scenario, and the interaction between each player as you're going through and trying to solve it. The more players we add, the more interactions we have to consider. And I love the fact that in this game, you're not allowed to technically talk about what you're kind of going to do. You can kind of use suggestive language and be like, I'm going to kind of jump over there somewhat early and do some stuff. but you can't really say exactly what you're going to do, which I think really increases this game's enjoyment level for me. The final game on the list I'm going to really highlight right now is Terraforming Mars. I think Terraforming Mars plays great at many different levels in terms of player counts, 2, 3, or 4, but I think it really shines for us at 4. I really enjoy the drafting mechanic of this game. I think it enhances it when you have more players in the game to kind of draft your cards and create a situation of, well, I don't want to pass, all these cards are good, I don't want to pass any of them over to my neighbor, but I have to do something, so I'm going to take this card and pass it over. I think that mechanic is really interesting and plays well to Terraforming Mars. Terraforming Mars is one of the only games I played where every time I have my cards in my hand, I'm like, I want all these cards. There's a cost to having those cards. I think it's a really fun game. There's a Kickstarter going on right now for the big box. I definitely would recommend checking it out if you're interested. I'll put a link into my latest video that refers to that up above. So this is my list of top 8 games that my group is playing right now. Did I miss anything, or is there anything that you think I should try? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you liked the video, why don't you help us out and smash that like button? The more you guys show the enthusiasm with smashing the like button, the better my channel is going to do and grow. I appreciate everyone that stayed till the end and watched the show. At the end, we're going to have a few videos here that you might want to check out. Talk to you soon.